Karleen, thank you for your time. I suppose the first question is, do you feel like after being in the job for 3 weeks you've got your feet under the table at council?
Well, you can see it's a big table. I've really enjoyed my time here, and yes, I do feel like I've really got into it. It feels a lot longer than 3 weeks. So I spent some time, I've obviously experienced a council meeting and had the enjoyment of being part of the annual plan process. But I've been out and about with meeting with community boards, other stakeholders, people that are involved in the council, and dropping down and seeing staff as well, and being briefed on particular issues.
It's a big step to take from coming to Australia to Christchurch to work in what was once known as a pretty dysfunctional council, and no doubt you're well aware of the issues that Tony Marriott faced, the personal criticism and the level of disrespect, I suppose, that was among the council. So for you personally, it was always going to be a bit of a risk, but obviously a risk you chose to take up. And the question I want to ask you is, why on earth would you bother?
Great question, and a lot of people have asked me that. I suppose a number of things. One is working for a council. Council's impact on people's daily lives in everything they do, whether it's water, rubbish, rates, roads, or rebuild. So that's something I was interested in, and I'm certainly interested in making things better. So when I read about issues like that, I'm really interested in how that could be changed. So that's a great challenge for me. Coming back to Christchurch was also important to me, being there close to family. But there's also the element of, this is the biggest job in New Zealand, really. And the opportunity to rebuild and recover and contribute to that, I think, is something that I really want to be part of.
You're absolutely right to suggest that, and to suggest that this is probably one of the biggest jobs in New Zealand's history, in fact, because you are one major person involved in the rebuild of New Zealand's second largest city. But Karleen, do you feel like you have the power to do so when you've got agencies like SERA and the CCDU that play such an instrumental role in deciding our future, though?
They do. I think we're at the phase in the rebuild where we actually look at how we work together around those issues, and whose responsibility, pieces of that work are, as long as we involve the community in some of those decisions and discussions as well. I think the challenge is that there's enough work for everybody, so we don't need to be competitive about it, but it's about how we continue to have a sort of long-term vision that we're all working towards, and the decisions we make contribute to that.
So give me some of the long-term decisions that will need to be made in the next 3 years that will change the face of Christchurch. Some of the things that come to mind when I ask that question, the first thing.
Well, I think it's about what do we want Christchurch to look like, what kind of city do we want, and therefore what decisions do we make in terms of what structures we put up, what knowledge is shared, how we use information, how we engage our community, how they feel part of that process to actually get to that vision in the end. But it's also about having an aligned vision, because we come from it from different perspectives. So government comes from it from a much broader view. It's not just about Christchurch, it's about Canterbury, and it's about the impact that Christchurch earthquakes has on the rest of the economy, for instance, in New Zealand. City Council obviously is interested in its own community here and focusing on that. So it's how we bring those things together and have a united view.
Do we have a united view now, or is there a lot of work to go between the various agencies, SERA, the government, which essentially is SERA, and the council? How are relationships now, would you honestly say?
Well, I see relationships working quite well at various levels, so I see our officials working together well. I've certainly spent quite a bit of time with CEOs of the various agencies that I'm involved with, and with central government, and I think that we do have a generally aligned view, but we have slightly different perspectives about that. So it's really understanding those and coming together about, so what does that mean?
You came at a time where various roles were disestablished. There was a bit of cost cutting inside council. Is there still more fat to cut, though? Because the concern is there are far too many middle managers inside council getting paid over $100,000 a year, but not probably doing all that much. That may not be the truth, but that is perception, and as you know, perception is reality.
I've come in and there is another change proposal in terms of completing the overall change, having some areas of the council focused on the rebuild and some on the business as usual to improve that accountability. And I'm going through a process where we're starting to look at how we deliver things. And I think there's plenty of opportunity to reduce the waste in our services. So, for instance, if we're writing reports, they go through a number of people that maybe they don't need to. It costs us $5,000 to write a report. It may touch 15 hands. So there are better ways that we can do that to make it more efficient and effective.
You see, I'm really surprised by that. To me, that's a massive thing to reveal in a way, that 15 hands, $5,000 a report. It does seem like a bloated bureaucracy, with the greatest respect, that seems to be out of control. I know you've only been in the job 3 weeks' time, but that is shocking, don't you think?
I think that's quite common in the sense.
Common doesn't make it right, though, does it?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I think we can do things better. But that's about that's just an example. But that may be getting a lot of technical advice, legal advice, financial advice, and so forth, and getting it into the right format and those sorts of things. So I'm thinking that there are plenty of ways that we can reduce those sort of processes and improve our responsiveness and timeliness of those issues, and release capacity to do other things. There are a range of other things that we need to look at when you talk about fat in the system. We need to look at where we spend our funds, because where we spend funds cost ratepayers. So things such as our communications, glossy magazines and things like that. It's important to get information out, but is there a better way to do that? And sometimes I think ratepayers don't want to see something that's glossy coming out from a cash-strapped organisation. So again, just another example, we have to relentlessly look at everything we do and the things we spend on, and we'll be doing that over the next 12, 18 months.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can cancel all the glossy brochures and you can just come on News Talk ZB. For free of charge, it doesn't cost the ratepayers anything. We've got the biggest audience reach, so there you go. I'm just inviting you right now. Let's talk about your priorities for council. I want to come back to that. What do you think is the most important priority for the council now? Is it trying to find funds that we simply don't have? Is it more reports suggesting the council is in a dire situation? Ratepayers want to make sure their rates aren't going up any further. They're feeling the pinch. So what can you do as Chief Executive Officer of this organisation to, I suppose, give ratepayers some hope that the council is doing all they possibly can to ensure we're not going to continue to experience rate increases?
So I think there are a range of things that are going on, and I don't have one single priority, but there are things such as, for instance, regaining and maintaining our accreditation. That's been an issue, and you'll know that the accreditors are here at the moment. There are things like sorting out the insurance issues. There are things like looking at our financial strategy about, how do we develop an affordable plan around the rebuild? What do we need to do around that? And there are the issues about how we connect with our community and have those conversations that we need around that. Then there's also an internal piece of work that I've just alluded to. So I'm really interested in looking at how we change or build on what happens in the council. We've got some really passionate and expert staff, but we want to make sure that the community sees us as a can-do organisation. So we want to be an extraordinary council that people feel adds value, and start looking at how we do things, how we respond, and making sure that we don't duplicate effort, that we use our resources in the most effective way, and that we're fit for purpose.
Karleen, I was speaking to Councillor Raf Manji a while ago about the council's financial status, and he was saying to me, "Be warned, Mr. Lynch, the worst is yet to come." What do you think he was meaning by that?
I think he means that there's some hard decisions to make in issues of how we can afford the rebuild and recovery. I think there was a report out recently around there's potential difference in what might be needed and what might be available, and that there need to be some trade-off decisions around what we can afford to do, how fast we can afford to do things, and what the cost of that will be.
I guess some of those trade-off decisions will probably include things like rebuilding the Christchurch Town Hall. I think there was a general feeling in Christchurch it was great to retain something that we lost, that we enjoyed, the acoustics were beautiful, but I think there's now a realisation, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, that although the council would like to put in 125 million or whatever the cost is to fix it, but the council's now having to really go, is that really a priority at the moment? What do you say to that?
I think those are good discussions to have, and I think we need to have them about what are the priorities, what are the things that the ratepayers who are paying for this actually want to contribute to, what they don't want, and how will we fund those. And I'm not sure about the decision around the town hall because I wasn't involved in that, but I think it's a good time to start to think about those things.
The culture of consultants is one of my bugbears, because there does seem to be, for better or worse, the use of consultants seems to be almost too much inside council. There's a perception out there that the councillors use consultants because they don't want to make the tough decisions that they should be making themselves, and that is why we elected them into office. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the councillors will make tough decisions, but they need to have the information to be well briefed on the issues to be able to make those decisions. So they do have a difficult situation. They've come with a mandate from the community around particular issues, and as they've come in, there have been some major contributions to add to our deficit, so flooding, and the consent process that has cost quite a bit of money to get up to speed, that they hadn't accounted for. So they will need to make some decisions around how we fund those going forward and what we need to do.
It's interesting you talk about the consent process, because I know this is before your time, so I'll let you off on this one. That we've got the Crown Manager, Doug Martin. He gets paid $2,000 a day to fix the issues inside the Christchurch City Council. Yet we've got Dr Nick Smith coming out and telling the Christchurch Press yesterday there's still a lot of work to do. The council accreditation and consenting issues still fall way short of national standards. Yet here's the same person that employed a Crown Manager to fix those issues. And it's been suggested and that are we on the way to commissioners here? But do you not think it's odd that the government is pointing fingers at the council, yet the government came up with a plan to fix the issues that it's moaning about now by employing Mr $2,000 fix-it man a day?
Well, I can't comment on somebody else's motives, but my understanding was that the council asked for input in terms of a Crown Manager back when that happened. There's been a tremendous amount of work done around the consenting process. So I think in June, 82% of residential building consents were approved within the 20 days, and there's been a huge increase in the number of consents required as well. So, if you like, battling on two fronts. So, in fact, I think they're doing pretty well. The accreditation process that's going on now will tell us how well they're doing or not, and I think that's important for us to go through so we can continue to improve that.
I just want to briefly touch on the comparisons between your role as Chief Executive of the Council and that of the Mayors. What do you see the Mayor's primary function being?
Well, I see our roles aligned but different. So the Mayor and the councillors are essentially the governance arm. So their role is to set the direction based on their contact with the community. And my role is to actually make it happen. So if you like, I see them as finding the destination, setting the map to where we're going to go, and my hands are on the wheel to get us there.
Any myth-busting tips you want to give me as a broadcaster or as the rest of the public would want to know in terms of, I mean, it's so easy to criticise the council, but is there anything out there right now that comes to mind where you think that's simply not true, this is what we're doing? I'll give you that.
That's right, and I wish you'd give me some notice.
You'll think of them as I walk out the door, won't you?
I will do that. I have to say that I've spent some time walking around, this building and the other buildings that our staff are in to meet with people. They're really highly passionate and committed, and they're here because they want to do a good job, and they want to actually add value to the community and the things that are happening. I've no doubt about that at all. And sometimes I think because of the bureaucracies and the rules around large organisations like this, which you get in any big agency, particularly government agencies, then they're stifled in some ways.
Can you change that yourself, though, being the big boss?
I think we can, and that's what we hope to do. Less rules, more guidelines, and giving people more ability to make decisions and work with others to get, in a partnership, to get what it is that we need to do. So it's about, allowing a bit of innovation and flexibility.
Well, the other myth-busting one I can think of on the top of my head at the moment is the donut effect around the city. I think there is tremendous construction going on. I was in my car on Sunday and I never thought I'd say this, but I get excited every time I see a building going up around Christchurch. Who would have thought when you get excited seeing a crane? But there is tremendous construction, particularly from the private sector at the moment, isn't there, around the city?
That's right. So I'm staying in Central City and I look out my window and I took a photograph. There's a disused car park, there's a building that's due for demolition, and there's cranes everywhere. And it's actually a fantastic picture of that things are really happening and starting to move. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years you'll start to see the benefit of that. I also had a visitor over from Australia who was really impressed with what was happening and had the sense that, everything had stopped. But actually when he came here, he could see things moving. And there's quite a lot of excitement. And I think the more we can give our community some certainty around things that are happening, the better. That just helps that sense of we're moving, recovery's happening, but it's going to take a long time. I think one of the myths of anything is that this would all be sorted in 3 years. It won't. This is 10 years plus.
But at least there's stuff happening. I've got to say, at least there's stuff happening. Just some final, more personal questions for you, if I can be so brave and bold. You took on this job satisfying a dramatic pay decrease, that of Tony Marriott, by about $200,000, if not more. And people give you credit for that. Do you understand why?
I don't understand why they might give me credit for that, but it was a conscious decision of mine. So in essence, I get paid a lot of money. I'd say that straight off. I did get paid more where I was, and I was offered at the same time a position overseas that were paid a lot more as well. But this was the job I wanted, and it was about affecting change and having an impact on a whole range of things. So I'm at that point in my career where it's actually more important to do something I really want to do than to worry about, how much I get paid and those sorts of things. However, don't tell my husband that.
I'll give you the last word for the listeners, the viewers of this. Any final comments to tell them right now in this stage of the rebuild of our city?
So I think the rebuild is happening, and what we need to be doing is telling them more about what's coming up. And give them that certainty around, so they get a sense of, why are they waiting for this bit and what's going to happen and when, because I think that's helpful in terms of their own recovery. I also think that what I would like to say is it's my vision for the council to be a much more responsive organisation that openly cares about what's happening in Christchurch, and that what I want them to see is, in 6 months' time, more transparency, but understanding about the council, to see more engagement, over that time, and then to feel like we're much more financially secure in about 2 years.
Dr Karleen Edwards, really appreciate your time. Thank you for talking to me at News Talk ZB. You have a great day.
Thank you.